Wendigos, towering, emaciated, and hungry in a way that goes beyond anything human. They have been a part of Algonquian legend for centuries, but the people in today's video are not talking about legend. They are talking about something they saw with their own eyes. My name is Nexium, and welcome back to the channel. These are some of the most chilling Wendigo encounters ever shared on Reddit, and by the end of this video, you are going to think twice about stepping anywhere near the woods at night. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. This is an absolutely true story, and I am ready to finally tell it. About a year ago, my long-distance girlfriend at the time wanted me to book us a cabin near the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. This was in the month of November, and it was already cold out. The place is located in old Ojibwe land, past Grand Marais, on Lake Superior. The first thing I noticed about the cabin was how primitive it was. It had few electric lights, a wood-burning stove for heat, no running water, and a wood-fired sauna attached. You have to cut your own stock of wood to get the heat going and the sauna if you want to enjoy those amenities. The other very odd thing about the cabin, we are both Christians and don't mess around with witchcraft of any type, and I believe in it absolutely, were the mirrors. There were many strange-looking mirrors in the cabin, at chest height, and too small to show anything about your body or face. You'd need to bend over to see your face in them, and they were facing each other. There were 6 of these hexagonal-shaped mirrors on each wall, directly facing a mirror on the opposing wall. I don't know why, but they bothered me a lot. We were slated to stay 2 nights, and as we got there, the sun was already going down, so I split wood and got the sauna going so we could relax. There was not anything abnormal about the outside, other than how remote the woods were and how quiet it was. We both experienced the same strange things at different times when we were in different rooms of the cabin, but I'll be brief. As soon as the sun went totally down, I felt like I was being watched. I spend literally months of time outdoors a year, and I'm an avid hunter and outdoorsman. I'm not easily scared or shaken, as most weird events can be boiled down to hearing animals moving or the weather. But the feeling of being watched was unshakable. My GF and I had intimate time a few times, and each time I'd stop in the middle of it because I truly felt like there was someone watching us from the outside. I didn't mean to freak out my girl, but she was feeling the same things I was, like a dread. I didn't even want to walk to the back or front door to go check, but I forced myself twice to open both doors and speak out into the woods. Is anyone out there? There were motion-activated lights and only turned on when I opened the doors. The next things that happened were we both heard what sounded like footsteps on the roof. You can't mistake that sound in a cabin that small for branches from the pine trees scraping the roof. There is a distinct sound. The footsteps would walk back and forth over our bedroom section of the roof. Finally, after minutes of nothing, we decided we were being paranoid and tried to go back to sleep. That night, and this has never happened before, we both had the same nightmare. I dreamed I was in a town that was flooding and I was looking for my grandfather to save him. I dreamed there was a shadowy man with his hand on my shoulder speaking advice I couldn't understand to me. I didn't turn around to see who it was, but it was male and I had a feeling of dread. I woke up staring into my girlfriend's open eyes. We both took a second to speak to each other as I thought I was still dreaming. I told her I just had a terrible dream, and I started telling her it. She finished my sentences by saying, "I dreamed the water was coming up, and I was yelling to you. There was someone standing behind you talking to you, and you couldn't hear me. I was screaming to you." We were both thoroughly freaked out at this point. A few minutes past 3:30 a.m., we both hear the outhouse door slam so loudly we both shot up in bed. I was angry at this point, so I got up, fully unclothed, and unlatched the lock on the back door. The motion-activated light was on before I opened the door. I saw nothing. I was very cold and there was no wind at all that could have opened the door even slightly and caused the slamming of the door. The next day after breakfast, I went to start up the sauna again, and I felt a presence so powerful standing behind me on the other side of the door that I started speaking, thinking it was my girlfriend about to join me. I opened the door and there was nobody. My girl had been doing the dishes inside the cabin. I walked in and opened the door and she had been talking to me as if I was inside the cabin behind her. She jumped and looked behind her, then back at me, then behind her again. She said something really eerie I'll never forget. "How did you get outside so fast? I thought you were standing behind me. I felt you behind me, and that's why I was talking to you." I said, "No, H, I was in the sauna. I thought you were waiting. I heard you right on the other side of the door, and I was talking to you." At this point, even though it was a dark, gloomy day around 1 p.m., we both had the feeling of being watched again. Later, when the sun went down, we both took a short nap. I had started packing all our things early as I had made up my mind to not spend another night in the cabin if one more thing happened. We had both had that unshakable feeling of being watched, and for some reason, we both had an image in our mind of what was out there. I'm saying this with complete honesty. When we finished describing what we thought was out there, we both took turns describing a cynically skinny human with a skull face and glowing white-blue eyes and having a crown of deer antlers. We both decided it was watching us be intimate and it wanted to kill me and take her. At that second, we heard the footsteps again, and we gathered our belongings and packed the car. I was waiting in the car for my GF to finish what she was doing so we could leave. I had everything packed, and I'd say I was waiting 15 minutes, wondering where she was. She wasn't coming. I did not even want to go back in, and I kept getting this panic voice in my head telling me to leave her. Just go and leave her there. I would never have done that, but it was this wild impulse to do so. I found her sitting on the back porch crying, and when I touched her shoulder again, she jumped. I asked her, "What are you doing out here? We have to go." Just before we almost left and I jumped into the car, we had this horrible fight. To this day, neither one of us remember what it was about. Only after we left was I able to process it. We both think whatever was out there was getting inside our heads with anxiety. It wanted me to leave her there. I'm sure to this day, if I had left even for 5 minutes, she would be a missing person case. On the road out, a huge white wolf crossed the road in front of us. It stopped trotting, looked at us in the high beam headlights, and continued walking. The farther we got from the cabin, the more calm and weirdly freaked out we became. We shared all of the little things about the cabin we noticed. We talked about the bad energy of the place and how we both were trying to play calm for the other person, trying to have a good time and not ruin it with talk of what was out there. I did email the owner of the cabin and told him about the sounds we heard. I framed it as, "I think you need to check the roof for loose shingles and the outhouse door, as we heard noises for 2 days. His simple reply was, "What sounds did you hear?" For some reason, that reply bothered me, as I got the distinct impression we were not the only couple that has stayed there and experienced such strange things. I do think we were stalked by a Wendigo, and to this day, I believe that if I had left my GF there, she would have gone missing. This story may not sound scary, but it is the total truth as far as I know it, and I wanted to share the experience in case anyone has had something similar happen to them. I am not a woods newbie, nor ever have I had such a feeling of being watched in my life. The part that got me the most is that they both described the exact same creature without even comparing notes first. Same skinny figure, same antlers, same glowing eyes. When two people independently see the same thing, that is when you know something is very real. And the fact that he almost left her there against his own will is genuinely disturbing. My mom's experiences in the Napa Valley. Disclaimer: These are all my mom's stories, from when she was young to her early 50s. When my mom was young, she lived on the border between the towns of Calistoga and Napa, nestled on the base of a large hill. Her house, connected to the main highway by a long, winding driveway, was built directly on an old Native American campsite. We know this from local history and the many obsidian arrowheads we found scattered in the creek bed along the driveway and in the dirt in the backyard. The backyard had a pool, then a small lawn, which trailed off into the wild, dense hillside. My mom, who was a bit of a tomboy, loved to explore up in the hills with her two older brothers. She recalls one time while they were walking up in the hills, she was around 10, 11, when they started hearing their mother's voice. But something was off about it. First of all, it was coming from deep in the woods, and secondly, it was oddly slow, and the words sounded forced. And most unnerving of all, it was calling for them, each by name, to come to the bear cave. This is what they called a small cave up in the hills, one far from where they were. She and her brothers immediately turned back. Thankfully, they weren't that far from her house, so they were able to get back safely. She tells me this happened, voices calling to her that sounded like her mom, dad, or brothers, as well as hearing sounds that she described as a growl, like if a bear and a cow had a baby and it got mad. Now, skip forward around 40 years. My mom has turned the place into an inn after my grandmother died. The first signs that something weird was happening was when she found a dead buck in the backyard. Now, living in the hills, there were a lot of deer, and a couple dead does and bucks weren't out of the ordinary. But the buck looked like it had been ripped apart. Flesh was scattered everywhere, in the pool, on the pool deck, and the grass. But what my mom thought was odd was the fact that only the heart and stomach was missing. Nothing else. Just the torn into stomach and a missing heart and stomach. The last story I've heard happened a couple months ago. She was outside with our Labrador, cleaning up around the pool. It was twilight and the sun was nearly set. She suddenly starts hearing the same bear-cow cry up in the hills. It's getting louder and louder, and so is the lab's barking. Our lab, usually a sweetheart, is going ballistic. She's barking and growling as loud as she can, nearly drowning out the cries. My mom immediately takes her inside and locks the doors. The cries stopped after an hour, but she was thoroughly shaken. So far, these are the only stories she'll tell me about. She still doesn't let my brother and I up into the hills, though she claims the noises and deer were only mountain lions, and the voices just her young imagination. I believe it was a Wendigo. What gets me about this one is that it spans almost 40 years and it keeps coming back to the same property. The voices calling each kid by name from deep in the woods when they were children is terrifying enough on its own. But then, decades later, the same sounds come back. The deer gets torn apart with only the heart and stomach missing, and the dog, who is usually calm, completely loses it. And the fact that her mom still downplays it all as mountain lions and imagination after everything she has seen tells me she knows exactly what it is and just does not want to say it out loud. Possible Wendigo encounter I just had. This just happened to me less than an hour ago, from the time I've started writing this, at about 10:25-ish p.m. in eastern PA, Bucks County specifically, if you know where that is. This first part of my encounter all happened within a span of maybe 20 seconds. I was driving home after seeing my boyfriend. Don't know if y'all care about this, but FYI, I am a 19-year-old female. I want to be completely honest so y'all know I'm not lying. I hit a dab cartridge once or twice right before this happened, but I have a very high tolerance and no history of weed-induced psychosis or hallucinations. I even doubted myself about what happened until I told my boyfriend when I got home. This drive is about 45 minutes each way, and a drive I do often, like 3, 4 times a week. I know these roads very well, and I'm not easily spooked. I was about 15 minutes into my drive home as it was raining pretty heavily as I was coming down this one highway. And it's pretty dark with only a few street lights here and there. I was pretty much alone on the streets for most of my drive home since it was late and raining. As I was going down this highway at like 60 miles per hour, I suddenly saw this tall, deer-like figure in my headlights about 200 feet from me. I immediately started braking because from a distance I thought it was just your typical big buck standing in the middle of the road. Happens all the time in PA as we have no shortage of deer. But as I was approaching closer to this deer, I see that it's freakishly tall and very slender. It almost looked like someone took an image of a deer and stretched it out vertically, honestly. I also noticed that my headlights aren't lighting this thing up, not even my brights. All I see of it is a bold black silhouette right there in the middle of the road, unmoving. Because all I see is the silhouette, I can't tell if it's standing on 4 legs or 2, but the height and stretched out quality of its appearance has me thinking it was 2. I was struggling to brake fast enough to avoid this deer without spinning out on the wet roads, but I eventually slowed down, and as I get slower and closer to this thing, it starts going fuzzy. I squint. I turn my wipers on faster. It's still fuzzy. As I came to a full stop, it suddenly just disappeared, completely vanished into thin air. So now I'm stopped in the middle of the road on this empty highway thinking I'm going insane because this roughly 12-foot tall figure that I know I saw just isn't there anymore. It didn't jump out of the way, it didn't run, it just vanished. I shake off the spooks and I hit the gas again, trying to convince myself that I'm going crazy because the alternative was too scary to think about. A few minutes down the road, I see something else. This time, a lot smaller, closer to the size of your average deer. But it definitely wasn't a deer, or any animal that is widely accepted as real because it just suddenly showed up in front of my car. Like it wasn't on the left side of the road at all until it was in front of my car running across the road. I should have hit it. It was right in front of me. With the speed I was going, there was no way that it would have made it across the street in time since it was maybe 5 feet from my car when it first appeared. I didn't even get a chance to brace myself for impact with how close it was. But nothing happened. I didn't hit anything, not even a rock under my tire. At this point, I'm convinced that I've gone certifiably insane. I checked my rear view mirrors to see if there even was a deer, but it was too dark to tell. The rest of the way home, I drove as slowly as I safely could, just in case I saw something again. Alas, I made it home without another incident. I don't know what exactly I saw. I don't know why. If it was a Wendigo, it didn't hurt me since everything I know about Wendigo points to them being malevolent beings. I'm just freaked out, I guess, and wanted to share my story. If anyone has a better identification for whatever this thing was, let me know. For now, I think I'm gonna get myself a dash cam. Pennsylvania roads are fucking spooky. And that is gonna wrap up today's video. Honestly, after reading all of these stories, I will never look at the woods the same way again. From a cabin in Minnesota to the hills of Napa Valley. Whatever these things are, they do not seem to be tied to any one place. And that is the part that really stays with me. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe because it really does help the channel out more than you know. Also, if you want to listen to these stories on the go, I have a Spotify podcast linked in the description, so make sure you check that out. Comment down below which story scared you the most, because I always read the comments. And if you have your own story you want to share, just send it to my email in the bio. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.